if you start with life is generally preferable to death, health is generally preferable to sickness, happiness is generally preferable to sadness, none of these are absolute locked in stone rules. From those things...
Okay, so if you start with them.
Yes, if you start...
So you're not skeptical about those claims?
Wow.
Well, I'm asking.
You know, I came out and said that I wasn't going to be trying to straw man you left and right. And now every time I say something, you're like, oh, so you're not skeptical about that.
Well, I'm trying to
I haven't gotten
No, sorry, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to understand where your argument begins.
Well, it seems odd that you would come out with, so you're not skeptical about that.
Well, that's a
while
question.
I'm on my skepticism tour, while I'm in mid-sentence to describe that these are the general foundations that you start with.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Those are, okay, so, but what you're saying, if you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to be difficult. You're saying that those are your starting positions. Those are the things that you accept.
I'm saying they can be.
On faith.
No.
Oh, you have a rationale for them.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
You already have. Life is generally preferable to death because we're talking about our life, and death is generally not in the interest of the living. It can be an exception. This is the point that I was getting to. So you could start with those foundations. You could start with any three that you found. You could pick three arbitrary foundations. And the one aspect that makes a secular moral system distinct from religious pronouncements and divine command theory and those sorts of things is that the secular moral system has as its goal the object of getting better at getting better, which means if you find out that one of your foundations is wrong or in conflict with something else, you can now change that. You could start with death as preferable to life, and then when you find out that it's not working that well, you change that foundation. I think that these foundations, based on the evidence of how people tend to live their lives and what they care about, are a good set of three. There could be better ones that somebody come up with. I'm open to revision on any of these at any time. But to say that I'm not skeptical about them is exactly the opposite of what I am. Because skepticism is about, I'm not going to accept something as true without good reason. And it's about being open to revision should there be evidence. If you and I agree that we care about a good life isn't very well defined. And we may have different ideas about what good life is. But if we could actually just sit here and take notes, I think that we'd come across maybe a handful of things that we would agree would make for a good life. If we take those and compare them to the foundations of a secular moral system like what I'm describing, we can determine non-subjectively whether or not the list we've come up with are consistently approachable from that foundation. And we can do that for religious morality as well. The analogy that I've used in the past is, for example, a game of chess. There's nothing about the universe that requires that we care about chess or care about the rules of chess. The rules of chess are arbitrary. Somebody made them up. We changed them. We added en passant. We added castling. We added things like that. We have the rules of chess. We don't always know what the best move is. But if the goal of the game is to win, or at a minimum, not lose, then we can analyze the moves with respect to the consequences and with respect to the goal of winning and determine which moves are better and which moves are worse. That is what a secular moral system does because it allows revision, whereas religious systems don't allow for revision. There's not a Bible 3.0. There's not a Quran 2.0. There's no new revelation from God to say, hey, I said all this stuff about slavery, now I'm opposed to it. Or, hey, I was really down on homosexuals, but now I'm okay with it. Hey, when I said that here's what caused diseases, or that you were unclean and shouldn't enter the temple, all those things are actually wrong. The germ theory of disease is right. And none of that's come out.
Well, there is kind of a Bible 2.0. That was the New Testament, right?
Well,
so that
is the update for the Christians, except that it's worse than the first one.
Well, that's not exactly the point. The point is there was an update. So,
well,
okay, so
the update, it's not like Jesus came along and said, hey, in Exodus 21, where I was saying you could have slaves and beat them, we got that wrong, or you got that wrong. That correction's never given. That thing about, in Leviticus where we point out that women are worth 2/3 of that of a man, we got that wrong. None of that is corrected. In fact, the reason I say it got worse, although I didn't know we were going to go down the biblical route tonight, is that if you look at Jewish tradition, when you're dead, you sleep with your fathers. There's no real clear notion of an afterlife. And then with the introduction of the New Testament, what you get is infinite torture and punishment for finite crimes, which is immoral.
All right, so I don't want to go down that rabbit
Sure.
hole at the moment, although I'd be perfectly happy to do it, if we
Next time.
if we get there. Well,
Because they want us to go to questions here in a minute.
Oh, okay. So I want to address the rule system that you're putting together.
Okay.
Okay, so I was talking to a friend of mine who's an AI engineer. He's a very smart guy, and we've been talking about the foundations of cognition.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that artificial intelligence systems don't run on rules. Right.
Well, some of them do.
Well,
And certainly they run on an operating system that is full of rules.
that's actually not relevant in this case.
But that's the physical
Because they could
foundation.
operate on all sorts of different operating systems.
Well,
But okay, so
but
just hang on a
there's
second.
a foundation. The foundation I'm pointing to is the physical facts of the universe, and that would be roughly consistent with the hardware and the operating system that they're running on. But I'm sorry, I
Okay, well,
interrupted.
no.
Continue.
I mean, that's a reasonable objection too. But look, one of the things that happened and I think this is one of the problems with the we can generate a rational system of rules that can govern our behavior approach, is that since the 1980s, people have been trying to build rule-based expert systems that can do relatively simple things. Relatively simple. They're not that simple. Like basic medical diagnosis. They don't work. Rule-based systems don't work. You can't get them to operate intelligently, which is why machine learning came about to begin with. Because whatever machine learning is doing and allowing for predictions, it doesn't seem easily decomposable to a set of listable rules and a map of their interactions. The world doesn't seem to work that way. And I would say, back to the metaphysical substrate argument, you laid us forward a set of propositions, and the reason I was perhaps inappropriately torturing you about them is because there's a metaphysic under them. There's something that's driving you to put those forward as reasonable. You say, well, they're self-evidently reasonable. See, my question is...
I didn't actually say it, but okay.
Well, it's something like that, because you said, well, reasonable people could agree on these three or something similar. It seems to me that what you're saying is that there's a set of finite axioms that reasonable people could conceivably agree on, from which you could generate a rule-based moral system. Have I got that wrong? I thought that's what you said.
It's curious because I didn't say that, but it's very close to something that I have said in the past, which is, for any given situation, there's a finite set of actions that a person could take. And some set of those actions are better than others with respect to whatever the goal is. If the goal is to continue a decent life or improve the quality of your life, some set of one or more actions that you could take in this instant produces results that are better in ways that we would agree they're better. Like throwing Sam off the stage. If we were in that situation,
there must be an unconscious fantasy going on here or something, eh? Because we keep returning to that.
And it's fun. But one of the possible actions of this set of actions would be for me to throw him off the stage. Another possible set of action would be for me to, shield him. It is clear, and you can say that I'm just saying it's self-evident, it is clear that one of those is going to be more in Sam's best interest and perhaps even more in mine than another. That's all we're saying. We're not pretending remotely that we have the answer to every possible scenario, just that we have the foundational tool set that allows us to come up with the right answers. And we do this in opposition.
Yeah, but you also think that you can do that with a set of rules.
So first
See,
of
and
all...
I actually don't think that's technically tenable. I don't think there's any evidence for that.
I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Well, you can't build expert systems, for example.
Well, you can't say that you can't because...
Well, we've tried for about 40 years with no success.
Gee, 40 years out of 13.7 billion, and we haven't cracked it yet, so it's impossible?
No. But 40 years of exponentially increasing computational power with
Partially.
No solution on the horizon except for AI.
So, and the latest AI thing, which I absolutely love because I'm a chess player, is the DeepMind AlphaZero thing that learned the entirety of what humans know about playing chess in 4 hours or so and then beat the best previous chess computer. And people are saying, oh, it's the beginning of Skynet because now we have this sort of thinking. However, that method produced better results of letting it play itself with chess, giving it no opening book, giving it no history of chess, nothing.
Well, that's my point.
It didn't give it no rules. It gave it the rules of chess and the goal of the game.
Yes, but it didn't give it rules about how to play the game.
Correct.
Right, and that's because rule-based systems about how to play a game aren't optimal.
No.
That's why.
What happened is the AI took the rules of how to play the game and what the winning goal is, and it experimented and found the best ways to achieve that goal. And I think that's what human beings have done throughout the entirety of history. We're beings in a physical universe. We have the rules. The goal is to survive, and I would say the goal should be to thrive. And we are continually finding the best rules and the best methods. This exactly mirrors the moral system I'm talking about. The idea that there is someone on high telling the computer, don't play H4 as your first move, we threw that out because that's not the best way to find out things. Instead, we plopped the computer down just as we were plopped down in a universe when we gained consciousness and began interacting. And the computer, in the span of a few hours, discovered everything that humanity has discovered about chess. And now they are applying it to the sort of diagnostic things you were talking about. I think that that is directly analogous to what the best explanations of what human beings have done. And what happens, from my perspective, is that the thinking about morality is so difficult for some that it's just easier to say, this person told me, or this God told me, or this is the case. Because having to sit down and do the sort of life inventory to figure out, hey, what's best for us? I mean, even figuring out what the goal of the game is harder for some people, and so they accept and fall into these traps of like authoritarian models of this is what your goal is. And the thing that's probably frustrated me the most, which I talked about on a college campus last year, is if the government was running around dictating to people what their job was going to be, what their future was going to be, as some regimes have done, nobody would appreciate that. Nobody, almost nobody. I'm sure somebody would be, very happy, thank you, I couldn't figure out what to do. I'm glad I'm going to be, a brain surgeon, even though I don't know anything about it. But if the government was dictating things like that, there would be revolts. There have been revolts. And yet, curiously, when people think there's a God or a divine being or some cosmic consciousness or collective consciousness that has dictated a goal for them, they celebrate it.